Okay, this section is about quadratic formula. Okay, this quadratic formula is used to solve quadratic equation. So when we solve a quadratic equation, we made so far we learned three things. One is factoring method. One side of the equation is 0, and the other side can be if it's factorable, then we can factor it so that we can find x, the solutions from each factor. The second method is the one that we learned last section. That was about completing the square methods. So using the completing the square method, we can find the solutions. Okay, this is the third one, which is a quadratic formula. Okay, in this case, what you can do is just plug in all the coefficients based on this quadratic formula. So the quadratic equation is like this: ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Okay, there are coefficients a, b, c is constants. Then the solution is this formula: negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This is the solution. So what we have to do is just plug in all these values of the coefficients a, b, c. Then x is the solution. So we have to memorize this. So one of the good method, I wrote a little story like on the right side of the screen. Okay, let's say negative b. Okay, the formula is negative b plus or minus. So negative b. So negative has some kind of bad image. So I would say bad boy. Okay, bad boy may succeed or fail if he tries to escape from a prison. Do you remember that in order to break these square roots, then we need, this factor 3 needs a power 2. If the exponent is 2, then he can break the square roots and it becomes 3. So let's assume that the square root symbol is is a prison break, prison wall. So a bad boy minus b or negative b may succeed or fail, which is plus or minus. And then square root. Okay, square root is if he tries to escape from a prison, that's a square root. Then he needs what? Power 2, right? Power 2, like b squared, then b can get out from the prison. So he needs a power of 2. So b squared. Then what he does is it's time to escape from the prison. So it's time to go for action. Go for action. Let's put go for action, minus 4ac. And then once he succeeded escaping, then what does he do? Write letters to all his inmates. To all his inmates. To all, to all. So to A. Little story. It may help to memorize this one. If it's not, then just memorize the formula. It's much simpler. Alright, then let's try example 1. Solve the quadratic equation. Okay, so in order to solve this using quadratic formula, okay, we have to make the right side is 0. So the left side has to be ax squared plus bx plus c. So it will be x squared plus 6x, move 16 to the left, and negative 16 is equal to 0. Okay, from here, the coefficient of x squared is 1. So let's say a equals 1. And then b equals 6. C equals negative 6. b is the coefficient of x, right? So 1, 6, negative 16. And then the quadratic formula is what? Square root negative b plus or minus square root of b squared. Boy needs power 2. Then what? Go for action over, write a letter to all. And then plug in all these values. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared. 6 squared minus 4a is 1. C equals negative 16 over 2 times a. Alright, so little calculation. So negative 6 plus or minus square root of 36 plus negative times negative is plus 4 times 16 is 64 over 2. Okay, let's do a little bit more. Then negative 6 plus or minus square root of 36 plus 64 is 100 over 2. So negative 6 plus or minus 10. Square root of 100 is 10 over 2. Alright, then we can separate each numerator with the denominator 2. Then negative 6 over 2 plus or minus 10 over 2. Okay, a little bit more. The negative 3 plus or minus. Okay, negative 6 over 2 is negative 3. And 10 over 2 is 5. So the solution is either, okay, let me come back. Okay, let me write it here. So negative 3 plus 5. So x equals, x equals are going all the way like this. So x equals negative 3 plus 5. Or x equals negative 3 minus 5, because this is plus minus. So from here x equals 2 or x equals negative 8. So we have two solutions, 2 and negative 8. Okay, so just use the formula, plug in all the coefficients, then calculate, multiply, subtract, divide, and so on. Okay, in this example, okay, let's use the quadratic formula since we are learning the quadratic formula. Okay, so what is the A? A value? A is negative 1, B is negative 4. How about C? C is 8. Then the quadratic formula is negative B plus or minus square root of B squared minus, okay, go for action, over, write letter to O. Alright, then x equals negative b. So negative b is negative 4. Why don't we protect the negative 4, the number, within the parentheses? Okay, plus or minus square root of b squared. Negative 4 squared minus 4. A is negative 1 times c is 8 over 2a. So x is equal to 4 plus or minus square root of, okay, negative 4 squared is 16, okay, minus is plus, 4 times 8, 32, over 2 times, okay, a, sorry, here, this a is what? Negative 1. So negative 2. Okay, then x equals 4 plus or minus square root of, okay, 48. Okay, 48. 40 is not a perfect square number. So let's go to the right. Let me write 48. Let's simplify square root of 48. Okay, 48 is it 16 times 3? 16 times 3, right? Okay, if we are not sure, then you can divide 48 using, smaller number is fine. 2, then 24. 24 is 2 times 12. 12 is 2 times 6. And 6 is 2 times 3. Then we can put this one together. 2 squared, 3. So that is equal to 2 squared, 3 over negative 2. Then x equals 4 plus or minus. Okay, 2 out, 2 out. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 square root of 3 over negative 2. Okay, then finally we have two values. One is 4. Okay, let's separate 4 over negative 2 plus 4 square root of 3 over negative 2. Okay, separate the numerator, or x equals 4 over, okay, if you are not sure about this one, let me write one more step. So x equals, okay, this is plus or minus, so we can write it plus 4 square root of 3 over negative 3, or x equals 4 minus 4 square root of 3 over negative 3. So we separate this plus or minus so that we have two x values, and then separate the numerator with the denominator. 4 over negative 2 plus or minus 4 square root of 3 over negative 2, or x equals 4 over negative 2 minus 4 square root of 3 over negative 2. Since the denominator, so since we can reduce the each fraction, this will be negative 2. Why did I write plus or minus? Sorry about this one. This is just plus, right? Just plus. And then negative sign moves to the front, so negative 2 square root of 3. We can cancel out, reduce 4, or from the right side, x equals negative 2, and then negative is plus 2 square root of 3. So we have two solutions like this. Okay. Or from this, or from this, you can do this way. You can factor out the numerator. So factor out 2, then 2 square root of 3 divided by negative 2. Then this is equal to, 2 and 2 cancel out, negative sign moves to the front. So we have this. Then distribute negative, so negative 2 plus or minus. Okay, multiply negative, then what happens? Now negative plus times plus is minus. The negative times negative becomes what? Plus, right? So instead of plus or minus, becomes negative minus plus. But still the answer is same. So this indicates that what? Separate. So this means negative 2 minus 2 square root of 3, or negative 2 plus 2 square root of 3. So the answers are still same. Okay, in this example, before we use the quadratic formula, why don't we simplify this expression? So if it can be, is it divisible by or some common factor, or if you can factor out something, then factor out, because ABC will be, those coefficients will be smaller, so it's easier to calculate. So in this case, we can divide the equation by what? What's the common factor? You see 2, right? 2. You can factor out 2 or divide the equation by 2. Still okay. So let's divide this by 2. Okay, divide the equation by 2. Divide the equation by 2. Then 9x squared minus 12x plus 4 equals 0 divided by 2 is still 0. Okay, so you can factor out 2, but it's still okay, that's fine. Alright, then this is equal to, so from here we can set a equals 9, b equals negative 12, and c is equal to 4. So let's use the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is again what? Bad boy, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Write a letter to O. Then x equals negative b. b is negative 12, so put parenthesis, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4. A is 9. C equals 4. Over 2a. 2 times 9. The number looks big. Okay, so this is 12 plus or minus square root of, okay, negative 12 squared is positive 144. Okay, minus 4 times 9 times 4 is, okay, 36 times 4. 36 times 4 is 4 times 6, 24, 2 up. Then 12 plus 2 is 144. So minus 144. The radical becomes 0. This is 18. So x is equal to 12 plus or minus 0 over 18. Plus or minus 0 doesn't affect anything. So this x value is what? 12 over 18. And then reduce, then x equals 2 over 3. Okay, 2 over 3 plus or minus 0. Plus or minus 0 is just 2 over 3. So there is one solution, but this one solution is repeated twice. Now, do you remember now something squared is 0, then x equals, there's only one variable, something like this. X minus 2/3 squared is equal to 0. Then what is x? X equals 2/3. And this one is multiplied twice, right? And what is the graph of this? Let's say if this is graph y, then the graph looks like, okay, this is y squared graph, and this y squared graph moves, okay, shift 2/3 to where? To the right or left? To the right. 2/3, right? Like this. This is the graph. So if y equals 0, then, okay, y equals 0, then we are looking for what? X-intercept. So the solution is actually an x-intercept. Okay. All right, this is outside lecture. Okay, in this example, the solution will be a complex solution. So complex solution is what? The square root, inside the square root is negative. The radicand is negative, so it will be expressed as imaginary unit, I. So let's check what happens. Okay, there's no common factor, so why don't we just use the quadratic formula? So a equals 2, b equals -4, and c equals 5. Then quadratic formula is what? Bad boy will succeed or fail if he tries to escape from the prison. He needs power 2. Then what? It's time to go for action. Then once he succeeded, write a letter to all his inmates. So x equals what? Negative b is -4, plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2 times a. Then x equals 4 plus or minus square root of 16 minus 8 times 5, 40 over 4. Then x equals 4 plus or minus square root of, that is negative 24 over 4. Alright, so let's go move to the right. Then x equals, okay, 4 plus or minus square root of negative 24 is 4 times 6, right? 4 times 6. 4 times 6. Okay, 24 is 4 times 6. So if you are not sure, then we can do a little separation. 2 times 12 is 24, and 2 times 6 is 12. 6 is 2 times 3. So we can have 2 squared inside. 2 squared times 2 times 3 is 6. So that will be, okay, 2 squared times 6 over 4. Then x equals 4 plus or minus 2 can get out, 6 stays inside, and negative 1 becomes I outside over 4. Then you can leave it as this, or we can separate the real part and the imaginary part. So why don't we separate the real part and the imaginary part? 4 over 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 6 over 4 I. Then x equals 1 plus or minus, okay, we can reduce 2 and 4, so square root of 6 over 2i. So the solutions are what? The solutions are 1 plus square root of 6 2i over 2i, or x can be what? 1 minus square root of 6 over 2i. So you can write the answer like this, or you can separate this into two values. So this solution is what? Since this one has imaginary unit I, the solutions are complex numbers. Okay, this is the discriminant, the definition of discriminant. Okay, discriminant determines the type of solution. So Here is a quadratic equation, and if as you can see this quadratic formula, there is a square root, not the square root. So just think about the square root. This square root has, okay, let me write it here, square root. Maybe let's go back here. So x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And this radical is inside the square root. Radical is inside the square root. So let's say this is a discriminant, d. And just d value. Discriminant d is the expression of this radical. So b squared minus 4ac. And what would happen, the type of the solution? If the inside the square root is, let's say, 3 squared, perfect square, then this will become 3. Since this is become 3, then what we have is x equals negative b plus or minus 3 over 2a, right? Negative b over 2a. So this is a rational number, rational, and rational. So this will be rational numbers. So there will be plus or minus. There is 2 rational numbers. You know what rational number is? Okay, let me just explain real number. And real number has 2 types. One is rational, and the other one is irrational. And rational numbers are all the numbers that can be written in a fraction. So 2 over 3 fractions. So it can be 2 over 3 or 4 or 5 or negative 3 and so on. And irrational numbers are the ones that cannot be written in a fraction. So something like square root of 2 and then square root of 3 or the pi, e, all these things. So irrational numbers never repeat and never terminate. But rational number, like 1/3 never terminate, but this one can be written in a fraction. So 1/3 is a rational number. Irrational number is, it has a square root, something. So if a radicand, the discriminant is a perfect square, then this becomes an irrational number, right? So plus or minus something, so irrational number. Perfect square. Okay, how about the next one is, it's not a perfect square, something like square root of, d equals, something like square root of 3. Then 3 remains inside the square root. So the solution will be a square root something, right? Square root plus or minus square root. So there will be plus or minus 2 distinct, different square root solution. So that is rational solution. So that's what it means. So number 2 is if the radicand, which is the discriminant, is non-perfect square, then square root, we have 2 plus or minus square root solution. The square root is what? Irrational. Okay, the first one is perfect square, then what? Perfect square, then square root is gone. Square root is gone, then our final solution is fractions. So there will be rational solutions, 2 of them, plus and minus. Okay, what if the discriminant is 0? The discriminant is 0. So plus or minus square root of 0. The discriminant 0 is then what? Plus or minus 0, right? Plus or minus 0. So what we have is only negative b over 2a. Because plus or minus 0, right? Plus or minus 0. So what we have is only this one. So there is only one rational solution. There's only one rational solution, but that rational solution is repeated twice, right? Twice. So two same solutions, which is the rational solution. Okay, number 4 is the negative number. Okay, what happens if it's negative number? Okay, just think about this one. Square root of negative 3. Then this is no longer real number. Okay, since the negative is inside the square root, this is a complex number. Complex number, right? Imaginary number. This is square root of 3i, imaginary number. So finally there will be plus or minus. There are 2 distinct, different complex solutions. So using the discriminant, we can determine the solution types. Okay, there are 4 of them. They are all depending on the radicand, inside the square root. So let's try some examples. Okay, in this example, let's determine the type of solutions of each quadratic equation. Okay, first we gotta use the discriminant. So let me write the discriminant d. Okay, d equals what? B squared minus 4ac. So the discriminant is what? Okay, b squared, so negative 1 squared. Okay, a is 1, b is negative 1, c equals c. So b squared minus 4a is 1, c equals 2. Then this is equal to 1 minus 8. Negative 7. The discriminant is negative 7. That means plus or minus square root of negative 7. This is a complex number. Right? Complex number. So the solution is what? There are 2. One is plus or minus distinct complex solutions. Right, how about let's do the next one. Okay, the discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. The expression in the radical symbol. The radicand, right? Radicand, so that is equal to, okay, b squared. B is negative 3, a is 2, then c equals negative 2. So b squared, negative 3 squared minus 4a is 2, c equals negative 2. Then this is equal to 9 minus minus plus 4 times 4 is 16. Then this is 25. Okay, 25 is what? Square root of 25 is 5, right? So this is a perfect square. That means 25 can get out from the radical and becomes 5. So plus or minus 5 means there's no more radical. So it's just a rational number. So the solution is what? How many? Of course 2, plus or minus distinct rational solutions. Okay, let's do the third one. Okay, third one, let's find the discriminant. Okay, discriminant is what? A is 1, B is negative 2, C equals 1. So B squared minus 4AC. So B squared, B is negative 2. B squared minus 4AC. Then 4 minus 4 is equal to 0. Okay, the discriminant is 0. So plus or minus square root of 0 is what? 0. So what we have is only, the front part, negative b over 2a. So there is only one solution, right? Only one solution. And this is repeated twice. Repeat. Okay, wrong spell. Repeated twice. So one repeated. What solution? Of course, rational solution, because square root is gone. Square root is not there, so rational solution. So no square root. There's no square root, then that is rational solution. Okay, how about the next one? Okay, in this case, the right side is not 0, so we gotta move to the left. So the right side has to be 0. Then, okay, minus 9 each side, right? Minus 9 each side. Then the left hand side is x squared minus 2x minus 10 is equal to 0. So let's use this equation to find the discriminant. The discriminant is b squared minus 4ac, and a equals 1, b is negative 2, c is negative 10. So negative b of the b squared minus 4, a is 1, c equals negative 10. And this is equal to 4, okay, minus 4ac. So that is plus 40. Then this is equal to 44. And 44 is not a perfect square, right? This is not a perfect square. Okay, plus or minus square root of 44. Square root of 44. This is not a perfect square because it's the plus or minus, 4 times 11. So it can be like this. So square root, there's a square root solution, right? Square root solution because 11 stays inside. So if there's a square root, then that is irrational number. So there will be two. One is plus or minus. So two distinct irrational solution this time. Irrational. Because square root is an irrational number. Irrational solutions. So it is very useful to find to use the discriminant to find the type of the solutions of quadratic equations. So discriminant is the expression inside the square root. We call it what? Radical, right? Radical. Radicand. So b squared minus 4ac is the radicand that is inside the square root. So always check this discriminant to find the type of the solutions. Okay, let's summarize the methods for solving quadratic equations. Okay, so far we have learned 4 methods. Okay, the first one is factoring. Okay, for example, 3x squared plus x. Then what we do is, okay, the right side of the equation is 0, so we factor the left-hand side of the equation. So factor out the common factor, GCF. Then x times 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. Then using zero factor property, we set each factor to 0. This one 0, this one 0, so that this will give us x equals 0 or x okay, 3x plus 1 is equal to 0. So this will be what? X equals 0 or x equals negative 1 over 3. So we have 2 solutions. Okay, this is using factoring, and the second method is square root property. Okay, this is similar to the difference of squares. So if an equation, the left side of the equation is a square, then you can remove this exponent. Then we have only the base left. So the base x plus 2 is equal to what? Instead of removing the exponent 2 from the left side, we can put plus or minus square root on the right side. Then finally x is equal to what? Move 2 to the other side, then negative 2 plus or minus square root of 7. So there are 2 solutions, negative 2 plus or minus square root of 7. Okay, the third one is the completing square method. Completing the square method was what? We use x squared and x term, and then put the third term so that this will be a perfect square. So let's rewrite this. Then x squared plus 6x is equal to, put some space, equals 2. Then we gotta put what? Add half the coefficient of this. Half the coefficient of this, 6 over 2 squared. That is 3 squared goes where? To each side. So add. So this will be plus 3 squared plus 3 squared. Okay, then this is equal to, the left side is what? X plus 3 squared is equal to 2 plus 9 is 11. That plus 9 is 11. So finally, using the perfect square property, x plus 3 is equal to plus or minus square root of 11. So that the solution x is move 3 to the other side, negative 3 plus or minus square root of 11. So this is the solution. Okay, and then finally the fourth method is the quadratic formula. Just use the quadratic formula. What's the quadratic formula? Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Then a is 3, negative 2 is b, 2 is 3. So plug in all these numbers. Negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4, a is 3, c equals 2 over 2a. Then positive 2 plus or minus square root of, okay, negative 2 squared is 4 minus 4 times 3 is 12, 12 times 2 is 24. Over 2a. A is what? A is 3. So let me write this one with 3. So over 6. Then this is equal to 2 plus or minus. Okay, 4 minus 20 is 24 is 20. Negative 20, isn't it? Negative 20. Negative 20 is complex number. So that is equal to, okay, 20 is 4 times 2. Okay, 4 times 5, right? 4 times 5. So 4 moves to the front. And 5 stays inside. And then I goes outside. Okay. So this is equal to, all right, then separate the numerator and the denominator. So 2 over 6 plus or minus 2 square root of 5 over 6i. Then simplify. So the solution is 1/3 plus or minus square root of 5 over 3i. Okay. So since so far we learned 4 methods for solving quadratic equations: factoring, square root properties, completing the square method, and the quadratic formula. Okay, you can use any one of this. Okay, if factoring works, that's good, that's the best. If it's not working, then you may try completing the square or quadratic formula. Okay, this property is about the reverse of zero factor property. Okay, zero factor property is this. Zero factor property is if a product is 0, then what? Then either the factor a is 0 or b equals 0. The reverse is what? From bottom to right to up. So if a equals 0 or b equals 0, a is 0 or b equals 0, then product of a and b is equal to 0. That's the reverse of zero factor property. Okay, zero factor property. So, okay, write an equation. So we have an equation, right? If a equals 0 or b equals 0, then a times b equals 0. This is the equation. So write a quadratic equation that has solutions x equals 4 and negative 7. Okay, so this means the x equals 4. So let's move 4 to the left. Then what? X minus 4 is equal to 0. And move negative 7 to the left. Then x plus 7 is equal to 0. So some expression is equal to 0. Some expression equal to 0. Then what happens if you multiply these two? Multiply these two binomials. X minus 4 and x plus 7. Then the product has to be equal to what? 0. So this is the quadratic equation. So let me rewrite this one. So use the FOIL method. Write this in standard form. So x squared minus plus x, use the FOIL method, plus 7x. This one minus 4x. This product is negative 28 is equal to 0. So x squared is equal to, x squared plus 3x minus 28 is equal to 0. So this is the quadratic equation that has the solution 4 and negative 7. So if solution is given, then make the solution equal to 0. Then we have an expression. So multiply all these expressions, and then set it equal to 0. Okay, let's try some examples also. Okay, there are two solutions. So write a quadratic equation. So first, rewrite the solution so that one side is equal to 0. And what? X minus 3 is equal to 0. So move the value to the left. So right side of the equation is 0. Then since each expression is 0, the product is also equal to what? 0. So use the FOIL method. X squared minus 3x plus 2x minus 6 is equal to 0. Combine the like terms. X minus 6 is equal to 0. So this is the quadratic equation. Okay, the exercise 52 is still same. X can move. Okay, why don't we move? This will take time. So move everything to the left, then plus 3 minus square root of 5 is equal to 0. And from the right side, plus 3 plus square root of 5 is equal to 0. Okay, let's put parentheses. Okay, and then multiply these two expressions, then that will be equal to 0. So x plus 3 minus square root of 5 times x minus, let me put bracket because there is a parenthesis, 3 plus square root of 5 is equal to 0. Okay, then let's use the FOIL method. Okay, x times x is x squared. Then x times the parenthesis, 3 plus square root of 5. And then x times the parenthesis plus multiply the parenthesis. 3 plus square root of 5 is equal to 0. Okay, then let's simplify each term. Then this is equal to 3x. This is square root of 5x. This product is 3x. This product is minus square root of 5x plus. This is difference of squares. Difference of squares, so why don't we use a squared minus b squared? So 3 squared minus square root of 5 squared is equal to 0. And then still we need to simplify this. Okay, combine the like terms, 3x is plus 6x. And square root of 5x minus square root of 5x, these two cancel out. And 9 minus this is plus 9. Minus square root of 5 squared is 5. So finally, x squared plus 6x plus 4 is equal to 0. So this is the quadratic equation that has the solutions. The negative 3 plus or minus square root of 5. Okay, in this example, exercise 54, the solutions are in complex solutions, but it doesn't matter. Move 2i to the left, and then negative 2i to the left is equal to 0. So what we do is multiply two binomials. Then what happens? The result is negative. Okay, then what do? Distribute so that we can write it in standard form. Use the FOIL method. X times x is x squared. Multiply these two, then this is, we don't have to do this because this is difference of squares, right? difference of squares. A plus b, a minus b. So a squared minus b squared. B is this one, 2y. Then x squared minus, okay, 2 squared is 4, I squared. What is I squared? I squared is negative 1. So plus, okay, I squared is what? Negative 1. 4 times negative 1 is equal to 0. So x squared minus minus is plus 4. So this is the quadratic equation. Okay, always be careful. I squared is negative 1. Okay, how about this? X is negative 4. Okay, we want to write quadratic formula, quadratic equation. Then if you rewrite this, then this will be x plus 4 is equal to 0. So, quadratic is what? X squared. We need 2 x's. So why don't we multiply x plus 4 twice? Still, it is equal to 0, right? Still, that is equal to 0. So the answer will be, okay, this is equal to x plus 4 squared is equal to 0. Then this is a perfect square, so use the formula a squared plus 2ab. Remember this? A plus b squared is equal to what? A squared plus 2 times 2 terms plus b squared. So a squared plus 2ab, 2 times 4 is 8x plus b squared. So 4 squared is 16 is equal to 0. Okay, so this is the quadratic equation. Quadratic equation, we must have x squared. So x plus 1 does not make x squared, so we multiply x plus 1 one more time. So, 0 times 0 is still 0, so it doesn't affect the equation. So that we have x squared, the quadratic equation.